Testing, testing, testing. Hi guys, and welcome to yet another episode here from the car road trip to Oslo. For those of you listening to the last episode, I already told you that I'm making 2 episodes in one. I'm on my way to Oslo to pick up a good friend. We're gonna go on a canoe trip on the border of Sweden, and we just returned to Norway from being half a year in Ecuador. If you want to listen a bit more about our experience in Ecuador, head back a couple of episodes. The episode of this topic is gonna be how to start to make your own independent income that you can sustain digitally. Let's get started with the episode.
You are listening to LD Podcast. Would you like to publish with us? Tell us your story at www.ld.studio/podcasts. Edited and published by LD Studio.
All right, guys. One of the questions that I tend to get the most of people we meet and people we chat with online is, how did you start to build a digital income? Because obviously, now it all seems easy for the people standing on the outside, as we have companies that make money, we are the owners, we get salary, we get profits. But where did we start? Where did we have a job? Did we earn money from a regular job? How did we make that first money that we used again to build companies? And that's something I'm gonna try at my very best to give you a little insight to. We also did a quite extensive episode in the Time to Live podcast. It's also on YouTube if you Google Time to Live podcast, which is a podcast that is all about the 10 first years of travels in Sylvia and my life before we got Sakira. Check it out. There is a own 40-minute episode on how to save money and how to live cheap. So I'll probably cross some of the topics double up in this episode too. But in this episode, I'll focus more on the money making more than the money saving. But before we move into the money making, I still want to go into the topic of saving as much as you can and spending as little as you can. Because the only way you're going to retain money and have freedom with that money is if you reduce your spending to the absolute minimum. Because you can make as much money as you just want, but if your spender is very high, you're not going to have anything of it in the future to invest or do something further with it. And I see a lot of people now in our age, but also before, when we made our first money and did our first investment, that had the same income as us. I think a lot of people believe that we have always had like a huge income and earned a lot of money, but that's not the case. We've just always been extremely resourceful. My family background is from several families that have been really well educated and have had good salary jobs, but also families who always lived very resourceful. No crazy big houses, no extremely expensive cars, not any expensive hotel holidays. So I come from the culture where outdoor life, activities that don't cost anything, that's what we focus our time on. And the same for Sylvia. She also comes from a family where being resourceful always has been a strong topic. I don't think that's a criteria for doing the things that we do, but that's why it happened quite naturally to us. It was never something we had to change or do any major to. It was just when we met when we were 17, from the very start, we were kind of like, do we have to buy this? Do we have to spend money on this? And that has followed us through our whole life. And I always tell people in actual numbers to let people know how crazy it is what we sometimes spend. And I'll just do it for you right now. It's 2024. We have a kid. I'm 29 years old. We just came home from Ecuador. I've been in Norway now 10 days. And in those 10 days, I have pulled my credit card 4 times. Debit or credit card. I pulled my card 4 times. And I've spent 26 euros in 10 days. And obviously sometimes I spend a bit more. I buy something, equipment. But on a regular basis, I spend very little money. And then I know what's your next question. Well, how do you live then? How do you have that car? How do you travel so much? How do you have that food? And that's when we come into the money saving part. And that's where you have to listen to the other episode in Time to Live. Now, I'm just joking with you. I'll give you the quick run through here. One of the things that we have been doing for years is trying to never pay for overnight stays. And that's a mentality thing you have to change. Because once you travel, you're obviously depending, we need an Airbnb there or a hotel there. But if you're a bit tough, you can always bring your tent. You can always bring your hammock. Or if you're even tougher, you can use platforms like couchsurfing to meet people. Or you can actually just meet people in real life and gamble on that you find someone you can sleep with. We've done that very many times. And it's given us some of our best friendships in our lives. So it's not just about not spending money and being greedy. It's also motivation to meet people and encounter cultures. And so that goes especially for the traveling. But obviously now when we very early on invested in property, we also live for free in our properties because we rent them out, or everything we pay to the mortgage is something we pay to ourselves to pay down the credit. So I don't spend money on living. Then it's transportation. I bought this car 6 years ago. I paid it down long ago. It's free charging. I have many deals with other people where I charge for free, where I travel the most. So I travel for free in Norway. And then it's about food. One, I grow quite a bit of food ourselves. Secondly, we dumpster dive a lot. And that's something we've done own talks about. But dumpster diving in Nordic country is not just a really good thing for the environment. It's not just a very important statement to do, but it's also something that's going to save you tons of money. So all the time where we go, always trying to spend the least. And at some point, you're actually making quite good savings. Doesn't matter how much money you make. And then spending money won't feel so bad either. We're not greedy people. It's not like if friends go out and we're going to eat, we're not the ones saying, no, let's not go there. It's too costly. We like to spend once in a while. But on regular basis, we challenge each other. How little can we spend? How little can we spend going a couple of weeks, And if that comes a lifestyle mentality, you end up spending so little money compared to other people, because then you start buying only what's really relevant. Most people, if you consider what you spend money on, I'd say up to 60-70% of their expenditure is unnecessary stuff. So there's a lot of money just going out, and they have to earn that money again. And I did we had a talk on a conference some weeks ago where I mentioned that specifically. I have for years not made a higher average income than between 2,500 to 3,000 euros a month personally receiving on my bank account. Now I'm talking profits of companies, salaries, other commissions on an average, something higher, sometimes lower. I've had many months where I, as an employee have denied my own salary to make sure that my employers get paid. That's the kind of person I am. Still, employers, they will always hate on you. Doesn't matter what you do, but that's another topic. So I've never really had a very high income. Of course, it's steadily been increasing, but I have a lot of friends and people that for years have made a much higher income, and I have people now that have graduated with a bachelor degree and master degree and doctor degree that have up to 6,000-7,000 euros a month, but they aren't even close to the property we own, to the savings we have, and the assets in general. You know, we own so much more than these people, and we have so much more money, and it's just because we never really have spent money. So enough about saving money, but it is the key topic for building, let's say, an independent presence. And that's what you need. If you want to focus on digital income, self-sufficient income, if you're on zero, if you're on scratch level now, and you're depending on your next payslip, you're in a stressed state of mind. You're in a state of mind where you cannot really innovate. You cannot develop anything. You're running from one slip to the other. So the first you need is some backing. You need some savings, because that gives you peace of mind to say, well, I don't actually have to do this regular job now. I can focus a couple of months or half a year or a year on my own things. And just when you do that, you're actually going to build own income, undependent from any employment. Going a bit back in our history, that happened very early. As I mentioned in the previous episode, I started my first company when I was 16. But already before then, I had quite a bit of savings, because I'd been working part-time in a supermarket and doing small other commission jobs like gardening work and helping out in elderly homes for 3-4 years, and already then I didn't even spend money. So let's say at an age of 16, my savings were probably around 10,000 euros, maybe a bit more. Not huge amounts of money, but for being 16, that's the kind of amount of money that, I mean, it feels big then, and you have quite a big financial independence already then. So I was never pressured on having any jobs, and I always had very much peace of mind. And that's something that has remained important in all our investor career, is having enough savings and backings to always have a exit strategy. So if everything goes bad, if everything goes down, and you lose all what you've built, the companies, the assets, whatever, will you still have a good time for a year with the savings you have? Will you have a good time for a year or two? Or are you scrapped? Do you need to run right for a job? Is that obviously will stress you if you know that. So that's been something that has been a track record for all the time in our investment careers, is having enough savings to feel comfortable to take risk and work towards risk. So at the point where I started my first company when I was 16, I wasn't depending on any income, so it was easy to quit all my jobs and just focus about that project at the side of college. And normally it went well, because I knew there was a demand. I knew I could provide this product. I knew how to market it. And it wasn't challenging at all. It sounds weird, but it wasn't challenging at all. And I think my tip and learning experience from this to anyone wanting to start anything at any point in your life is having that saving set aside, that you can let everything stand still and say, well, now I'm going to experiment in any way. You don't even have to have the idea clearly laid out before you make time in your calendar. But it's much easier to build something if you have full focus and not at the side of another job, because then it's always half focused. And I've seen so many people burn out on the steps of starting something, but never really getting a try at it, because it's just unmanageable having other responsibilities that you depend on fulfilling. You need complete freedom. That's the key. And we had a lot of it because we always had savings, and we made more savings out of those savings, because I again came very profitable out of that first climbing instructor company. That money again financed almost 2 years of travel. But during those 2 years of travel, we had so much free time to start content productions, to start film projects, which we again made good money off. So we made more money than we spent during those 2 years again, building our independent network, building our digital income. And all the way, that's been our strategy. So that's been our way of building an independent income. But obviously, I don't want to motivate anyone out there to follow that pathway, because some of you listening might be in your 30s, might be in your 40s. You're a different place in your life. So my general tip would be focus hard on reducing spending, focus hard on making savings on the income you already have before you start pressuring yourself into creating something else. And then at the time where you can say, okay, I want to back down 50% of my job, or I want to quit my job, then start focusing. And you don't have to quit. There's many employees right now. Me as an employer, I have several times accepted requests from employees, and I'm actually quite motivated to accept them. When an employee asks me to let's say reduce a 100% contract to a 50% contract for a 2 years time to go traveling or focus on something else, I'm happy. I'm happy for that person, for the experience that awaits that, and it gives us stability that we know that that person is still available instead of quitting. And it gives that person stability because that person knows that it still has a job in case things don't run out like they want. It's highly likely that they can step up again to a 100% contract. So maybe a solution is to ask your employer if you can step down or freeze your contract. Anyway, first, when you have freedom of mind, if you have time, then start looking into what you want to do. And there's a couple of things that I can point you in the direction of. I'd say simply there are 3 categories. Number 1, which I wish we moved into a bit earlier, is digital replicable products. This industry is huge. You don't have to be some sort of mastermind, and there's a lot of things you can do. And what I mean with digital replicable products, it can be anything from a simple Excel sheet that you sell, to a strategy document, to a novel that you've written, to artwork, to something way more complex like a computer program, something where you feel you have knowledge and are skillful that you can create without too much effort and too much investments, and that you can put for sale in the internet on a platform where you believe you can reach the audience that you're going to sell to. And instead of starting to develop the product, start by developing your market. Do research in where do people buy stuff like that? Can you try to contact some of the people buying it? Can you try to reach out on Instagram and Facebook if you can confirm some interest for that kind of product before you're actually starting to do anything at all? Because I've way too many times been too excited about starting the product instead of developing the market. And that's something I've had to learn through experience, that risk is much lower if you just start developing your market before you start developing your product. So that's one thing to look into, digital assets, digital replicable products, because once you have it set up and once it's selling, doesn't matter if it's €2 per unit or €20 per unit, you'll have a growing income, because if the product sells and you found a key market, it's very likely that sale is going to continue to increase as the product spreads. And another thing, if you learn a bit about online marketing, you can easily invest your returns into marketing instead of saving them, or a percentage of the return into marketing, and that way very organically and systematically grow that income. And I know a lot of people, and I'm talking from own experience, that from small things, a couple of products that sell for under 10 euro per unit have grown a quite respectful income that they know they'll have steady every month, and the products haven't been that difficult to develop. Me personally, I have a couple of really cool spreadsheets, budget things, and strategy documents that sell really well, and it adds on that monthly income. I'm just at a Tesla supercharging station. I have free lifetime charging, another thing of saving money. So give me a minute. I'll just head out to plug in the car. So number one, start building digital products. And don't be afraid of selling them too cheap. It's better selling and then growing and then increasing prices than not selling. Second tip would be, as I mentioned in the previous episode, start to building your personal network. Because as you move into the entrepreneurial world as a digital person, someone that works digital, you'll start getting more ideas. You'll start meeting other people that you potentially can build things with. And as I mentioned earlier in the previous episode, network is going to be your singular most important thing to launch bigger services or bigger products that are not, let's say, private to private or small customer to small customer market. So you can all the way build that network. You don't have to pursue it very crazy. You don't have to write and spam people down on LinkedIn or be that annoying person on conference that tries to meet everyone and get the contact of everyone, but focus on valuable connections. Be open, challenge yourself. It could be like now I'm on a charging station for Tesla. I probably have a handful of really good contacts that I've made on charging stations on Teslas, because if you look at it, the people who have Teslas, and if you look at the models of Teslas, which ones are the most expensive, those people will have well-paid jobs. They might be a director of a company. They might have a managing position. If you go in with an open heart, engage in a conversation, who knows what might come out of it? And that's also in terms of having remote jobs, because one thing that I want to focus about in this episode is it's not necessarily the way for everyone to go to build your own products or own company, because maybe you are listening in here because you want to build digital income, but not be a business owner. And that's fully possible as well. In today's world, more and more companies are moving into hiring massively remote or only hiring remote. For example, we at the LD Studio, the communication agency, we only hire remote at this point. And building your knowledge of which companies do so and building your network of people who work with recruiting people to companies that do so is going to give you a lot of options. And maybe you build up in a way of a freelancer where you have this agreement with that company and this agreement with that company, and you can take your key experience from previous jobs, and that doesn't have to be any managing role or project manager role or communication role. It could be literally that you have been a waiter at restaurants for many years and you think, well, this is an expertise I have. I know what works in restaurants and what doesn't. I'll hire myself out as a consultant to restaurants to help them improve waiter culture, Just top of my mind, could be anything. But if you pursue digital presence and you provide a product, then with the network, you're going to grow, and it doesn't have to be big contracts. You could, for example, have, let's say, you work for a restaurant chain, which you every month make 200 euros for being accessible and guiding them and being a contact person for their waiters. Probably that restaurant chain is happy, and you have a safe 200 euro income every month, and maybe it's lifetime if you provide well. So that will be number 2, grow your network. And number 3, simple and straightforward, start investing, start trading. There's many ways of investments and trading. I won't go into the depth of them here, But it is by far the single most easy way to get into making a digital income, because it is shoving money around from one to B. You can literally enter with any accessible funds you have, and during the course of a couple of years, you'll get the hang of it. Some understand it really quick, some take a bit longer. But in the end, everyone who spends time and is willing to learn will make profits. Obviously, once in a while, there is a major hit, something goes bad, you lose money. But that happens in everything in life. That happens when you crash your car, that happens when you lose your phone. So don't be too afraid about people talking investment down, talking it to be so risky. There is so many different strategies. I have a lot of friends that are really careful and safe investors. I have a lot of friends who are big risk takers. Some of them make huge money, but all of them make money, and they make that money passively and digital and from everywhere. So get into stock trading or get into investment of funds or other sorts of investments. There is something I want to make a new episode on, and that is, as I promised, another episode on house flipping and different ways to enter property markets. So property or assets is also interesting investments, and I know people who have done, let's say, trading with collector's goods instead of any stocks or stuff. And if that's your niche, if you know things that other people don't know, and you know that people pay for it, that might as well be a market to enter. Like NFTs, buying art, selling art is also a form for investment. But finding your style of investment is the single most effective way of making a steady income. So that's it for this time again, guys. Thanks for listening in. It's been a short and precise episode. I hope it helps you spark your mind how you can make your digital income. And I hope I shared enough about how we made it to the place we are right now. If there is anything you have questions about, let me know on DM on Instagram, or put in a comment on YouTube. Thanks for listening in, and I'll see you in the next episode very soon.
Thank you for listening to LD Podcast. We are continuously looking for the most talented innovators. No matter your background or expertise, shoot us an email at high5@ld.studio with your skills and portfolio.